In 1949, Prime Minister Nehru went on a now famous tour of the United States, and his goal was to go around the country and try to understand how new technologies and innovations could strengthen his then young nation. So for nearly a month, he went across all of America. He went from businesses in New York and San Francisco to family farms around Chicago and Madison, Wisconsin, to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And that visit to MIT actually helped inspire the establishment of India's own IIT system, which not only ignited a new era of science and technology innovation for a new nation, but it also ignited a partnership in science and technology between India and the United States. Indeed, the United States was the first foreign partner to collaborate with India's IITs, when 9 leading U.S. universities helped build the Indo-American Research Program at IIT Kanpur. Some years later, Prime Minister Nehru would observe, at an IIT convocation in fact, something prescient for our own era. He said, and I quote, "The time has now come when the engineer plays an infinitely greater role than anybody else, because the major work of the country today deals with engineering schemes of various types. And the administrator who is completely ignorant of engineering does not help much in administering." Something quite similar could, of course, be said today about governments, administrators, national security advisors, ambassadors, trying to keep pace with concurrent revolutions in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, space, quantum, and other fields. So it is fitting in many ways that today, 7 decades later, and in this moment of technological transformation, India and the United States are taking our partnership to the next frontier together. And if we can get it right, I believe this partnership could be the most consequential of the 21st century. For both the United States and India, our partnership is key to our own growth, to jobs at home. It is critical for stability and security in the Indo-Pacific. And increasingly, it is critical to bringing stability and prosperity to like-minded friends around the world, especially emerging economies. And so we are deeply invested in India's success, and I believe India is deeply invested in ours. Right now, over 1,000 American companies are operating in India. Over $50 billion in foreign direct investment flowed into India from the United States. And Indian private sector investment in the United States recently surpassed that of China. Investments that, by some estimates, have helped create more than 400,000 American jobs. More than 300,000 Indian students are studying in the United States. In fact, we welcome more international students from India than any other country in the world. And for all of our work together, in many ways, we are just getting started. When President Biden came to office, he made clear that America's domestic strength and our international position were inherently linked. And in an era of intense geopolitical competition, he noted that we needed to reinvest in our own domestic industrial base, our own innovation economy, to strengthen our capacity and strategic position abroad. But he was also clear that this was not an approach that we could just pursue on our own. We needed to do it together with allies and partners. Because by building trusted supply chains, by jointly investing in emerging technologies, and by leveraging our respective advantages, we would all emerge in a stronger position, the U.S. and all of our friends and partners around the world. There is nowhere where that theory of the case that President Biden laid out at the start of his term has more clearly been put into practice and demonstrated than in the U.S.-India relationship. Over the last 4 years, we've joined hands to help halt a pandemic, to bring vaccines to the world. We've launched initiatives on jet engines, semiconductors, and clean energy. And in a few months' time, we'll come together to put an Indian astronaut in space. These are remarkable achievements. And we made them by harnessing the remarkable innovation of the American and Indian people. Here at IIT Delhi, There are impressive young entrepreneurs who are designing everything from AI-enabled robotics to military-grade sensors. Ventures that I'm proud to say are being supported by the United States through partnerships with New York University, the U.S. National Science Foundation, and the U.S. Space Force. And that's really what I'd like to say more about today. How we've done things like this here at IIT Delhi, but done it at scale across the board. How we've taken the U.S.-India partnership to a fundamentally new level over the last 4 years, with innovation at its core, and how that is playing out bilaterally, regionally, and globally. First, we started by transforming our bilateral technology partnership. When President Biden came to office, he knew that Make in India and Made in America are not incompatible concepts. In fact, they are complementary. And that's why in 2022, as you've heard, our administration launched the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies with India, ICET. Now, as Ambassador Garcetti laid out, this is not just something that springs into existence by osmosis or by some, magical abstract creation. It's through people, and people in senior positions in government, and people throughout the government, and then throughout the scientific community, the private sector, and beyond. But one person in particular that I would like to recognize is my counterpart, the Indian National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, because it was in part his vision that technology, and particularly advanced technologies of the future, would be a propellant for the U.S.-India relationship in a way that could take our two countries forward, advance our respective interests, protect our respective values, and build a better world for everybody. And through this partnership, through this initiative, and through so many other things that Ajit and I have had to deal with over the course of the past 4 years, he and I have developed a deep personal relationship, a deep professional relationship. And it is that relationship, in part, I believe, that has helped play such a critical role in ensuring that the U.S.-India partnership has reached that new high level that I talked about before. Now, the fundamental premise of ICET is that in an era of renewed geopolitical competition, the U.S. and India have to collaborate on the development, diffusion, and protection of critical technologies, from artificial intelligence to biotechnology and beyond. This is our responsibility as the world's two largest democracies, as two large and fast-growing economies, and as leading Indo-Pacific powers. And as we mark the second anniversary of ICET this month, we've proven just how impactful that deepened collaboration can be across both of our economies and both of our innovation ecosystems. Just look at Vikram Solar, which announced plans last year for a $1.5 billion investment in solar manufacturing in the United States. Or Bharat Forge, which in 2021 opened the first U.S. greenfield aluminum forging plant in over 15 years. And at the same time, U.S. companies looking for more resilience in both their markets and their supply chains are shifting out of China and expanding into India. Take, for example, Apple's significant investment in Indian production. Within the next couple of years, over a quarter of all iPhones in the world will be made right here in India. Or Ford's recent expansion in Chennai, which will add thousands of jobs in Tamil Nadu. And I want to take a moment to talk about supply chains specifically. The United States, India, and other key democratic partners have all been reminded, abruptly and sharply, that we cannot ignore the ways in which interdependencies can be weaponized against us. We've seen countries lose access to critical minerals that support our clean energy and electronics industries. We've seen companies struggling to compete against China's predatory industrial strategies in chips and clean energy and other emerging technologies. And of course, we've seen repeated attacks on industries tied to our critical infrastructure, which is heightening the risks not only to cyber espionage, but of destructive sabotage. That's why, as we launched ICET, both President Biden and Prime Minister Modi made it a priority to invest in national programs that are spurring production in sectors that have become overly reliant on a single country, China. These include the U.S. CHIPS and Science Act, the India Semiconductor Mission, and India's production-linked incentive program in areas such as biopharmaceuticals. And the benefits of those programs are already flowing to both of our countries. Micron was the first, not just American, but global company to partner with India's semiconductor mission, investing hundreds of millions of dollars in new semiconductor packaging facilities that will establish India as a new hub in the global chip ecosystem. India and the United States joined hands with the ROK, Japan, and Europe to establish a new biopharmaceutical supply chain consortium, the Bio5, that will help reduce dependence on single-source suppliers in terms of the supply chain for biopharmaceuticals. We are poised now to expand those efforts into new sectors, most notably commercial space exploration. In fact, literally as I speak, U.S. companies are providing support to a SpaceX satellite docking experiment that will enable new Indian missions to the moon. And as a result of new updates to our missile technology control export policies that President Biden signed out last week, and which I'm glad to announce publicly for the first time today, our commercial and civil space partnership is set to lift off. Second, as we've strengthened the technology partnership between the U.S. and India, we've started delivering for the Indo-Pacific region as well. Just take a look at the U.S.-India defense partnership. The growth of our defense partnership over the past 2 decades has been nothing short of remarkable. Consider that 25 years ago, the U.S. and India had no defense trade relationship at all. No frameworks for information sharing or logistics cooperation. No major military exercises to train alongside each other. Today, the U.S. isn't just selling defense systems to India, we are making them here in India. And the United States has become a top destination for Indian defense exports. We launched a first-of-its-kind initiative, IndusX, that is awarding American and Indian startups the funding to more rapidly bring new technologies forward to our militaries. And on top of this, in the past 2 years alone, the Biden administration has approved technology proposals that would enable India to become the first global producer of Stryker combat vehicles, a leading producer of advanced munition systems, and the first foreign producer of cutting-edge maritime systems. We've already announced a groundbreaking initiative to enable India to manufacture jet engines that will power India's future indigenous fighter fleet. And even more work is underway in aviation and sensing and undersea that will come to fruition soon. And so many of these initiatives have the capacity to spread way beyond the U.S. and India to eventually help countries across the Indo-Pacific region upgrade their defensive capabilities as well. Because that is a critical goal that unites us to ensure a more free, more secure, more prosperous, and more resilient Indo-Pacific region. And in fact, the stronger defense cooperation between the U.S. and India is already enabling greater security across the region. Through the multinational Combined Maritime Forces Coalition, of which India is now a full-time member, we are combating both piracy and trafficking at sea. Through Exercise Malabar, the U.S., India, Australia, and Japan are training to more rapidly respond to natural disasters across the region. And through historic agreements that allow U.S. Navy vessels to seek repair and maintenance in Indian shipyards in Kochi, Mumbai, and soon Chennai, the United States can more readily train and operate with countries across the Indian Ocean region. At a time when we're seeing more dangerous provocations in the air and at sea, the proliferation of destabilizing technologies, and countries attempting to change the status quo by force, our cooperation in technology, in defense, and beyond is rapidly becoming one of the core pillars of stability across the Indo-Pacific. And frankly, it goes beyond the Indo-Pacific, which brings me to the third area, delivering for the world. Nowhere is this more evident than clean and affordable technologies. The U.S. Development Finance Corporation is engaged in path-breaking partnerships with Indian companies to localize and scale solar manufacturing. That includes investing nearly $1 billion in solar panel manufacturing in Tamil Nadu and providing support for leading Indian manufacturing, including Tata Power Renewables. And in the past year, we concluded a new initiative on clean energy supply chains that lays out a path for our countries to deploy clean energy across Africa, to work with African partners on high-impact solar projects, on electric vehicle projects. And we're not stopping with clean energy. Our technology partnership is delivering affordable public goods in numerous ways. Through the Quad, for example, we've announced plans to deliver Open RAN technology, which will bring 5G and 6G to the world, AI-driven agricultural solutions, cutting-edge satellite data to developing economies. And at the G20 here in Delhi in September of 2023, we together announced the launch of the India-Middle East Economic Corridor, an ambitious initiative linking India, the Middle East, and ultimately Europe with a sea and rail corridor and fiber and electricity and energy connections. That was just a few weeks before October 7th. It got disrupted with the events and the crises in the Middle East. But we have continued to nurture the vision of IMEC, and I have personally engaged with the key countries and key leaders to keep making progress. I've also talked to the incoming administration about the enormous opportunity that IMEC presents to deliver both growth and integration, and a high-standard alternative to what Beijing has on offer. The bottom line of all of these efforts that I've just laid out is that the potential for this partnership to a large extent has already been realized, but in realizing it, we recognize it's actually boundless. There is so much more for us to be able to do as we go forward. But I hasten to add that that progress is not inevitable. Over the years, I've noticed that people have referred to the United States and India as natural partners. It's a phrase they use, natural partners. And in many ways, that's true. Our democracies are linked, our companies are linked, our universities are linked. As you heard from Director Banerjee about the synergies between U.S. researchers and researchers right here at IIT Delhi. And more than anything else, our people are linked. But the U.S.-India partnership that we've built together is not one that just naturally sprang into existence. All of our linkages may have been necessary, but at the same time, they were insufficient to generate the outcomes that we've seen. The partnership we have built is one of intention, of choice, one of determination, of leadership, and frankly, one of perseverance and grit. Look at the U.S.-India Civil Nuclear Agreement concluded by President George W. Bush and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, or India's designation as a major defense partner of the United States in 2016, or President Biden and Prime Minister Modi's decision to manufacture advanced jet engine technology and explore space together. None of these were natural occurrences. Step by step, we've worked to build trust, to build habits of cooperation, to move our partnership past what Prime Minister Modi has called our hesitations of history. Which brings me to another historic step in the journey. Although former President Bush and former Prime Minister Singh laid out a vision of civil nuclear cooperation nearly 20 years ago, we have yet to fully realize it. But as we work to build clean energy technologies, to enable growth in artificial intelligence, and to help U.S. and Indian energy companies unlock their innovation potential, the Biden administration has determined that it is past time to take the next major step in cementing this partnership. So today I can announce that the United States is now finalizing the necessary steps to remove long-standing regulations that have prevented cooperation between India's leading nuclear entities and U.S. companies. The formal paperwork will be done soon, but this will be an opportunity to turn the page on some of the frictions of the past and create opportunities for entities that have been on restricted lists in the United States to come off those lists and enter into deep collaboration with the United States, with our private sector, with our scientists and technologists to move civil nuclear cooperation forward together. This is a statement of confidence in the progress we've made and the progress we will continue to make as strategic partners and as countries who share a commitment to peaceful nuclear cooperation. It's also the result of India's open and transparent engagement with our administration over the course of 4 years, which has enabled us to open this new chapter together. Of course, none of the work we've done together over any of these years has been easy. We've had to navigate our fair share of turbulence, legacy relationships, tensions over trade, as well as over human rights and the rule of law at home and abroad. But we've navigated these issues together with our eye on the long game. And our ability to do so reflects the deep and enduring resilience between the U.S. and India, across generations, across administrations, and yes, across the aisle. This leads to my parting thought. Where do we go from here? I'm deeply proud of the work the U.S. and India have done together under ISET to shape the technologies of the future. I'm deeply proud of the fact that I believe we are passing the baton on to the next administration in 2 weeks' time in an even stronger position than what we inherited 4 years ago. But there is still so much to be done. It's not going to be enough for the U.S. and India to simply collaborate in building the critical technologies of the future. We also are going to have to work together to shape the diffusion, protection, and the rules that govern those technologies. We've already begun this work in domains like space, where India's decision to join the Artemis Accords is allowing us to establish a common set of principles around civilian space exploration. We're going to need to do the same thing in other spheres as well, such as the employment of artificial intelligence and advanced biotechnologies, both of which are going to have enormous consequences on every facet of life. And as we see more and more new technologies diverted to unfriendly actors, the U.S. and India are going to have to ensure that valuable dual-use technologies don't fall into the wrong hands. That means aligning our export control systems, looking at trade measures to protect our industrial strategies from overcapacity, better securing our supply chains, and reviewing outbound and inbound investment in sensitive sectors. As we take those steps, we need to expand the work we're doing to leverage American and Indian innovation to help the world, especially emerging economies, enable equitable growth across the globe. And finally, our partnership can be most effectively sustained and can actually only reach its full potential if we live up together to the values that lie at the core of our democracies. Respect for the rule of law that creates the conditions for dynamic growth, respect for pluralism and tolerance that powers innovation, and the protection of basic freedoms that unleash the human spirit. I say this as someone who fully believes that the United States can realize those aspirations, that these are the basic truths about how our democracies will grow and flourish. So let me close with this. This is likely, because I've stopped actually predicting just about anything in this crazy world we live in, but this is likely the last trip overseas that I will lead as National Security Advisor. And I cannot think of a better way to end my tenure in the White House. Visiting India on my final overseas trip to mark the advances we've made together over the past 4 years. This is a shared and historic achievement, a cornerstone of the Biden administration's foreign policy legacy. We've had to deal with our challenging moments. We've had to work to resolve difficult issues. But, man, have we put a lot of points on the board. And being here at IIT Delhi with the young technologists and entrepreneurs and policymakers who will take this generational project forward, I have every reason to believe that within the next decade, we will see American and Indian firms working together to build the next generation of semiconductor technologies, American and Indian astronauts conducting cutting-edge research and space exploration together, American and Indian researchers contributing to a new explosion in life-saving vaccines, American and Indian engineering students developing new innovations together right here at IIT Delhi, and American and Indian leaders propelling our partnership and our future toward what the American statesman and scientist Vannevar Bush called the endless frontier that we have yet imagined.